Hello and welcome to another retrospective of an iconic adventure game franchise. You can find a lot of videos about adventure games in my channel, like the full history videos about Space Quest, King's Quest, Gabriel Knight, Leisure Suit Larry, Loom, Grim Fandango and many more. You can also find a 2-hour documentary on the history of the genre with the rise and fall of the adventure games. If you like the content of my channel, please consider supporting it by subscribing and turning on the notifications for it. You can also consider supporting me by becoming a member of my YouTube channel. There is one membership tier and you will have a lot of benefits like exclusive updates on upcoming videos, you get to watch each new video earlier, you get to decide the topic of upcoming videos, and also member exclusive giveaways that will follow. This time we are going to cover one of the most iconic series in the history of adventure games. The Indiana Jones adventure games began as tie-ins to movie releases of the massively popular Indiana Jones franchise, but then followed their own path utilizing unique storylines that were independent from the famous movie character. The second Indiana Jones game is considered one of the best, if not the best adventure game ever released, taking up the first or second place among the many best-of lists of the genre. These games are typical of the golden age of LucasArts adventure game production and established both the company and many of the people involved as true legends of the industry. Their development process, however, was not always smooth sailing, as we will see later on. Wear your hat and grab your whip as we begin with the first game in the series. In 1989, LucasArts was ready to release its third Indiana Jones movie, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. To capitalize on the franchise's massive success, the company was also developing in parallel tie-in video games to coincide with the movie release. For this specific movie, LucasArts created two separate games with the same title, the first being an action game developed for the 8-bit computers and consoles of the time, and the other a graphical point-and-click adventure which we will cover. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was a graphical adventure game developed in-house by LucasArts Games and released in 1989 for the MS-DOS, Amiga and Atari ST, and 1 year later ported to the Macintosh and the Japanese FM Towns computer. The plot begins following closely that of the film of the same title, but moves on to expand on it. As the game begins, Indiana Jones is approached by businessman Walter Donovan, who tells him about the Holy Grail and of the disappearance of Indy's father. Indiana embarks on a quest to find his father and reclaim the holy artifact from the Nazis, who pursue it also. He travels to multiple locations like Venice, Berlin, the Brunwald Castle and more. Last Crusade was one of the most innovative of the LucasArts adventure games of the time, as it also incorporated action scenes like fighting sequences and plane chases and dogfights. It also introduced a flexible point system, the IQ score or Indy quotient, which awarded the player points for solving different puzzles. The IQ score could be carried from every playthrough to the next, and in order to achieve the maximum score of 800, the player had to have multiple playthroughs solving puzzles with alternative solutions than in their previous attempt to gather more IQ points. That, on the other hand, also brought negative comments for the game, as some puzzles' alternative solutions were extremely difficult and hence completionists had a really hard time achieving the maximum score in The Last Crusade. There are also reports that some of the scenes in the game, like the air chases and more, were initially conceived by George Lucas and Steven Spielberg for the movie but ended up being used in the game only. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was the third game to utilize LucasArts' signature engine, SCAM, after Maniac Mansion and Zak McKracken and the Alien Mindbenders. The original release was enhanced 1 year later in 1990 with 256 color graphics and CD audio. This is the version of the game that you are seeing on screen right now. It's not the EGA original version but the VGA remake. The game was received positively upon its release, with many critics calling it a brilliant film tie-in. It was also Lucasfilm's best-selling game at the time of its release, with sales of over 250,000 copies. Combining this with the huge success of the Indiana Jones franchise, it was no-brainer that LucasArts would develop a new Indiana Jones adventure game. 3 years after the original release in 1992, the new Indiana Jones game, titled The Fate of Atlantis, came out for the Amiga, MS-DOS and Macintosh computers. Contrary to its predecessor, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis has a unique story not based on the events of any of the indie films. The story is set in 1939 as the world is on the brink of World War II. Archaeologist and famed adventurer Indiana Jones gets a visit from a Mr. Smith who asks him to locate a small figurine among the archives of the Barnett College. When Indiana finds the artifact, he delivers it to Mr. Smith, who uses a small special key to open it, retrieving a small metal bit from the inside. He then puts out his gun and escapes, leaving his coat behind. In it, Indiana finds Mr. Smith's true identity to be Klaus Kerner, a Nazi agent. Also inside the coat is an old magazine containing an article about an expedition on which Jones collaborated with a young woman named Sophia Hapgood. Indiana Jones, fearing that Sophia might be next in Kerner's list, travels to New York to find more about the stolen artifact and warn her. A series of events unfold, revealing the link of the artifact with the legendary Atlantis. The two of them must travel to multiple locations across the world to stop the Nazis and reveal the true secret of the fallen Atlantean civilization. What is unique for this game is that it includes 3 different paths. Early on, the player is given the choice between 3 different game modes, each with unique cutscenes, puzzles to solve and locations to visit: the team path, the witch path, and the feasts path. The team path focuses on the interaction between Indiana Jones and Sophia Hapgood to progress. The witch path includes more and more complex puzzles, while the feasts path is more action-oriented than the other two. Contrary to the other LucasArts games of the time, death is possible but can be easily avoided. The IQ or Indie quotient introduced in the previous game returns for the Fate of Atlantis, encouraging the players to complete the game with multiple playthroughs following different paths. Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis was the 7th game to utilize the SCUM engine, and more specifically, an updated version of it that featured 256 color graphics. An enhanced CD-ROM version of the game came out 1 year after the original release, featuring full voice support. When the game began development, most of the Lucasfilm Games staff was busy with other high-profile projects like The Dig. Hal Barwood and Noah Falstein were selected to helm the new Indiana Jones adventure game. Initially, Lucasfilm wanted to base the game on the rejected script of Indiana Jones and the Monkey King, but the 2 co-producers of the game found the script substandard and rejected it. They traveled to the Skywalker Ranch to research for available material for the game, where they stumbled across the whole Atlantis story on a cheap coffee table book. Barwood designed the game and was the principal creator of the storyline and the script, while Falstein helped write the story and conceive the idea of the 3 different paths. This addition of 3 different paths added about 6 more months of development time, mainly because of all the extra dialogue that had to be implemented for the interaction between Indiana and Sophia Hapgood. The Atlantean artifacts and architecture were designed to resemble that of the Minoan civilization, as the game implied that the Minoans had close ties with Atlantis. One of the locations of the game is at the Knossos Palace of Crete, once the capital of the whole Minoan civilization. They were supposedly eradicated after a volcano eruption on the island of Thera or Santorini, which caused a major tsunami that hit the shores of Crete and wiped the Minoans from the face of the earth. Character animations utilized the rotoscoping technique. As a matter of fact, the model for all of Indiana Jones animation in The Fate of Atlantis was Steve Purcell, the mastermind behind the Sam & Max comics and games. Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis received universal acclaim from critics and was nominated for several awards for Best Adventure Game of the Year and Game of the Year after its release by several game publications. It sold millions of units and is widely regarded as one of the greatest video games of all time. Noah Falstein reported that it was LucasArts' all-time most successful adventure title and that the game's player audience was 30% female, a higher figure than most LucasArts titles had achieved before its release. The first idea for the game's sequel was conceived by the game's director Hal Barwood and revolved around a group of Nazi refugees in Bolivia after the end of World War II who planned to resurrect Adolf Hitler using the Philosopher's Stone, the mythical alchemical substance. The game went into development under the title Indiana Jones and the Iron Phoenix and was firstly showcased at the European Computer Trade Show. There, the extensive use of neo-Nazism was pointed out by German attendees to LucasArts, along with the concerns whether the game could be marketed to Germany because of those themes. As Germany was an important market for adventure game sales, LucasArts decided to cancel the game after 15 months of development. Barwood had stated in later interviews that it was a mistake on the team's part, that they didn't give the script enough thought, and that the cancellation was the right thing to do. Another planned sequel was in the works, based on the story of the Holy Lance or Spear of Longinus, the one used by the Romans to pierce the side of Jesus Christ while he was on the cross. The game was titled Indiana Jones and the Spear of Destiny and was outsourced to another smaller studio. However, the lack of similar experience to control third-party developers and other internal LucasArts issues caused the game to be cancelled also. Both those stories from the cancelled sequels ended up becoming comic book series published by Dark Horse Comics. Regardless of the cancelled sequels, the two Indiana Jones adventure games and especially The Fate of Atlantis are regarded as classics today. The latter is considered among the best games ever developed, and not just for the adventure game genre. The character is loved even today, even though the last film in the series was substantially substandard. That was the full history of the Indiana Jones adventure games. Do not forget to watch my other retrospectives on iconic franchises like Loom, King's Quest, Space Quest, Gabriel Knight, and more. You can also find my 2-hour documentary on the rise and fall of the genre. If you like the content of my channel, please consider supporting it by subscribing and turning on the notifications for it. You can also consider supporting me by becoming a member of my YouTube channel. There is one membership tier and you will have a lot of benefits like exclusive updates on upcoming videos, you get to watch each new video earlier, you get to decide the topic of upcoming videos, and also member exclusive giveaways that will follow. We will have more adventure games videos soon. Thank you all for watching.